Since the early days of gaming, most titles have encouraged you to be the hero, whether that's from saving the galaxy or planet from certain destruction, freeing the kingdom from evil tyrannical rulers, or just simply helping villagers deal with whatever small menial tasks they need doing. And while this can be fun, there's an undeniable attraction that some of us have to being able to be a complete menace to society, especially when you don't have to suffer the consequences. Luckily for us, there are developers out there that also understand how tempting it is to let out your inner demons and unleash a bit of chaos into the world, even if it's just in a small way. So with that in mind, here are some games that let you be a complete menace. Untitled Goose Game, developed by House. Few games have ever captured the sheer essence of being an unrepentant little gremlin like Untitled Goose Game. You're not a warrior or a hero, just a horrible goose with a vendetta against humanity. And somehow I relate to that so much more than any protagonist wielding a sword. The game gives you multiple ways to cause problems, like sneaking into gardens, stealing keys, honking at unsuspecting victims, and generally just behaving like the feathery arsehole that you are. But the best part is that the villagers are powerless against your honking reign of terror. No matter how much they chase you or shoo you away or beg you to stop, you always come back to deal out some more misery. And what makes this so much more fun is that all the problems you cause are so chaotic, but on such a small scale. It just adds to how hilarious it is creating these petty inconveniences and minor annoyances. And there's so many different ways that you can go about achieving your objectives. It's like there was a crossover between the Looney Tunes and Hitman. You need to approach certain situations with at least a small amount of strategy and planning, but the results are so cartoonishly silly, it's almost impossible not to enjoy. Postal 2, developed by Running with Scissors. If Untitled Goose Game is about being a low-level nuisance, Postal is about turning that nuisance up to 11, lighting it on fire and taking a piss on the ashes. This is the game that takes being a menace and cranks it into full-blown anarchic insanity. The beauty of Postal is that it technically gives you the choice to behave. You could, in theory, go about your day-to-day, running errands like a normal person. But the second you realise that your errands include things like buying milk and standing in line at the bank, the temptation to go off the rails becomes so overwhelming, and Postal is more than happy to accommodate. What's so clever is that it uses these mundane things that we do in real life, and allows us to unleash our inner psychopath that I believe all of us really wish we could be sometimes. Of course, the series has had its ups and downs, but at its best, Postal is a pure, unfiltered sandbox of mayhem where the only rule is that there are no rules. Well, except one. Don't be boring. And Postal makes sure you never are. Grand Theft Auto 5, developed by Rockstar Games. GTA 5, a game where the main story is about crime, betrayal, and the American dream. Or at least that's what I've been told. Most of us boot it up just to see how long we can survive a 5-star wanted level. From the moment you step into Los Santos, you're given a massive open world filled with people who, unfortunately for them, react to everything you do. But fortunately for you, that's where the fun begins. You can steal a fighter jet, drive a bus off of Mount Chiliad and parachute out at the last second, or load up an online lobby, put on the most ridiculous outfit possible, and chase people down with a golf club. And these are just the basics of GTA 5 players' usual experiences. And the physics engine makes being a menace even better. NPCs crumble like crisp packets when they've been punched, and nudging a police car just enough can make them slam into oncoming traffic. The entire game is just one big sandbox of nonsense. And if you get bored of terrorizing pedestrians, Rockstar knows exactly who their audience are, and were kind enough to include cheat codes that let you spawn tanks, turn yourself into a superpowered ragdoll, or make cars just float away like balloons. Sure, GTA has a great story with excellent writing, but let's be honest, you're here to drive on the wrong side of the road at full speed, honking your horn like a lunatic while blasting to your favourite radio station. Dishonored, developed by Arcane Studios. Dishonored is a game that gives you a plethora of tools and the choice to either be a disciplined shadow or an unrelenting force of destruction. Although it was designed primarily as a stealth game, its freedom of choice allows players to experiment with the limits of its world, often leading to some truly creative moments. The game tries to encourage stealth, but outright mayhem is never withheld from you. Players have access to abilities like Blink, Possession, and Wind Blast, each of which can be used in creative ways to either avoid detection or kill your enemies in outrageous ways. But Dishonored's flexibility makes it a playground for troublemakers. You can teleport behind an enemy, possess their minds, and walk them off of a rooftop, only to blink away and be back on the ground before they even land. Or you can use bend time to redirect bullets back at their shooter, or unleash a swarm of rats upon an unsuspecting victim. The game actively acknowledges and rewards your creativity, whether it's through unique kill animations, environmental interactions, or the sheer panic of guards reacting to your shenanigans. And while the game presents a morality system, it never punishes the player outright for choosing chaos. Instead, it just makes Dunwall's world feel reactive and alive. The more destruction you cause, the darker and more oppressive the city becomes, reinforcing the idea that every action has consequences. Ultimately, Dishonored is a game that allows for a high level of strategy, or complete unfiltered mischief, whether you want to be a silent assassin, or the reason half the guards can't afford their new insurance premiums. The Sims, developed by Maxis. At first glance, The Sims seems like a wholesome life simulator, where you can build the perfect home, start a dream career, and nurture a loving family. But for every player who carefully manages their Sims' happiness, there's 5 more players who just want to see how much suffering they can inflict. The game is practically built for creative murder. You can lock your sim in a room filled with carpets and load it with fireplaces for the most over-the-top slow roast ever. Or maybe just lock them in a room with no toilet and watch as their dignity crumbles. And of course, there's the classic putting a sim in a pool and mysteriously forgetting to build a ladder. But it's not just about the suffering. You can also make their lives ridiculous. Give your sim a job as a criminal mastermind, but force them to live in a shack with only a single chair. Make a couple fall in love and then create a third who exists purely to ruin their relationship. Or just create a household where everyone hates each other but still has to live under the same roof. And then you've got the bizarre AI that reacts to all of this in absurd ways. A sim who has been on fire 3 times in one day will still insist on making that grilled cheese for dinner. A burglar might show up and steal your toilet instead of your TV. Or the Grim Reaper could show up to take your Sim's soul, only to get distracted by a dance party happening in the same room. In The Sims, you're not just a menace, you're a god of terror and inconvenience. And that's exactly why people keep coming back to these games. Goat Simulator, developed by Coffee Stain Studio. There's something oddly beautiful about a game that was designed to be completely broken on purpose. Goat Simulator doesn't just allow absurdity, it thrives on it. The physics barely function, the objectives make no sense, and yet it all comes together in a perfect storm of ridiculousness that let you live out your most ridiculous goat-related fantasies. You can lick things to drag them around, launch yourself into the sky using a barely functioning trampoline, or cause mass destruction by headbutting everything in sight. And I'm sure this is all stuff goats truly crave. But what transcends Goat Simulator into the hall of gaming fame is its sheer unpredictability. You never know what's going to happen when you try something dumb, but the game expects and encourages you to try it anyway. Maybe you'll glitch into another dimension, maybe you'll summon an eldritch horror, maybe you'll strap a jetpack to yourself and regret every decision immediately. Whatever happens, it's guaranteed to be hilarious. And at the end of the day, Goat Simulator is a game about breaking everything, including itself, and that makes it the perfect playground for pure, unfiltered chaos. Maneater, developed by Blindside Interactive. Sharks don't usually get revenge stories, and since Spielberg killed their public perception, I feel like they really deserve one. And Manny is definitely a good start. You start as a baby shark, And by the time you're fully grown, you're an unstoppable aquatic nightmare with a thirst for vengeance, and well, pretty much everything else. This game doesn't just let you eat people, it encourages you to devour them in a creative form of artistic expression only available to sharks. Launch yourself onto land to snatch unsuspecting beachgoers, drag jet skiers into the depths, turn hunters into the hunted. The more destruction you cause, the stronger you get, evolving from big scary fish to prehistoric super predator. You're not just playing a shark, you're playing an apex predator that has absolutely had enough of humanity's shit. And honestly, one of the best parts is that the game is fully aware of how ridiculous it is. It leans into the absurdity, with hilarious narration and over-the-top progression systems that eventually lets you deck out your shark with electrified teeth and bone armor. Because why settle for being a regular menace when you can be a bioengineered sea monster of chaos? That's the video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you know of any other video games that let you be a complete menace, why don't you leave them down in the comments below, and they might show up in a part 2. And in the meantime, keep well, and I'll see you in the next video.